You see it. That's the GOAT right there.
That reaction right there tells you everything about what's happening inside Indiana Fever practices right now. Raven Johnson, the former South Carolina Gamecock, who spent 2 years trying to stop Caitlin Clark in college, just pointed at her teammate and declared her the GOAT. No hesitation, no qualifiers, just pure recognition of what she's witnessing every single day. This matters more than you think, because Raven Johnson isn't some random player trying to score points with fans. She's the defensive specialist who guarded Clark in the 2023 National Championship game when Clark dropped 30 points. She was on the court again in 2024 when Clark put up another massive performance in the title game. She knows exactly what that level of talent looks like up close, and now she's saying it out loud.
Look at it. She pulling up. That's in front of a hand in the face. Cashed out. The GOAT right there, man. Shout out to Raven Johnson, man. Look, people finally starting to being able to admit it. You know, she's seeing it every day in practice firsthand. She's seeing things. It don't just happen in the games. She is witnessing the greatness firsthand in practice every day.
Watch that shooting form. That's not a preseason warm-up three-pointer. That's a contested pull-up from the left wing with a hand in her face, and it's pure cash. This is what Raven Johnson sees every day now. The parking lot threes, the logo shots during drills, the passes that shouldn't be physically possible. All the things that made Caitlin Clark the most electric player in women's basketball history. And here's what makes this significant. Raven Johnson didn't just say it in the moment. She doubled down on Instagram, posting the same clip with the caption, "The GOAT," for her followers to see. That's intentional. That's a public statement about who she believes is leading this team. In a league where politics and personalities often overshadow performance, that kind of unfiltered endorsement carries weight.
In her rookie preseason debut, which was, I saw a backup guard that can definitely be a contributor, that can be a role player next to Caitlin Clark, that can defend, okay? And if she learns how to hit that catch and shoot three, she can definitely be a quality role player next to Caitlin Clark, all right, man? Caitlin Clark going crazy, man. Listen, Caitlin Clark is about to turn it up. She about to turn it up, man. I keep seeing people, Caitlin Clark's not going to get the win the MVP. Damn that. Damn that. We going for it. MVP loading, okay? This is courtesy of Robin Lundberg.
Now let's talk about what this means for the Fever's roster construction. Because when Raven Johnson was drafted, a significant portion of the fan base had serious concerns. Not about her talent. She's a legitimate defensive player with length and instincts you can't teach. The concern was about everything else that comes with her. South Carolina fans immediately started claiming she should be starting over other guards. Angel Reese supporters began pushing narratives that Johnson was better than Clark because of her 2 national championships. There was this entire ecosystem of noise that had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with the college rivalries that some people refused to let go of. That's why Fever fans were skeptical. Not because of Raven Johnson herself, but because of the circus that seemed to follow her. But here's what we're learning in these early practices. Johnson is handling this exactly right. She's not feeding into any of that nonsense. She's not playing politics. She's showing up, playing defense, asking questions, and openly praising the best player on her team.
Because of her at this point, she did say what she said about Caitlin Clark fans, and I'm still not rolling with that. But when I say the extras, meaning all the South Carolina people, you know, you got Angel Reese fans trying to pile on and say that she's better than Caitlin Clark. She should be starting. It's a bunch of nonsense that comes along with this thing, which is why a lot of us wanted nothing to do with it. But she's trying to do her part to be a good team player. Okay, here it says Raven Johnson couldn't have fit in more quickly with the Indiana Fever. Not only has Johnson already dispelled any doubts about how things would play out.
Sports Illustrated published a piece by Robin Lundberg, breaking down exactly why Johnson's comments reveal so much about her fit with the Fever. The headline was direct. Raven Johnson's Caitlin Clark GOAT remark says everything about her Fever fit, and they're right. The article points out that Johnson has already dispelled doubts about how her competitive history with Clark would translate to being teammates. She's not carrying grudges from those championship losses. She's not trying to prove she's on Clark's level. She's embracing her role as a complementary piece who can help this team win. Aaliyah Boston has been particularly vocal about what Johnson brings to the roster. Boston specifically mentioned Johnson's ability to push the pace when Clark is on the bench, which keeps the Fever's tempo high even during rest periods. That's crucial for a team that wants to play fast and create transition opportunities. And everyone around the team has praised Johnson's defense, which was always her calling card at South Carolina. Head coach Stephanie White said after Johnson's preseason debut against the New York Liberty, "You can't teach instincts. You can't teach those go-go gadget arms, the length, and her ability to recover. That defensive versatility means Johnson can fit into multiple lineup configurations, including potentially playing alongside Clark in certain matchups."
Right there, okay? It says it was a playful remark, but Johnson doubled down on her Instagram story shortly thereafter, writing "the GOAT" as a caption on the same highlight. So Raven Johnson, she's not hiding it. She's outwardly supporting Caitlin Clark. She's outwardly admitting, yo, this girl's different. She's like that. She is one of one. She's one of one. There's nothing else like her. She's the GOAT, okay? Here it says, it's safe to say the compliment to Clark will not go unnoticed by number 22's massive fan base. Fever rave about Raven. Here it says, early returns indicate.
Here's where the fit becomes really interesting from a tactical standpoint. If Raven Johnson can consistently knock down catch-and-shoot threes as a spot-up shooter, she becomes exactly the kind of role player who thrives next to Caitlin Clark. Clark is going to have the ball in her hands. She's going to create advantages with her shooting gravity and passing vision. What she needs around her are players who can defend, move without the ball, and convert open looks. Johnson checks 2 of those 3 boxes automatically. The defense is elite level, the off-ball movement and basketball IQ are there from her time in Dawn Staley's system at South Carolina. The shooting is the question mark. She wasn't known as a shooter in college, but if she's putting in the work and showing she can hit that corner 3 or that wing 3 when Clark kicks it out, then you've got a legitimate rotation player who can contribute to winning basketball. Think about how Lexi Hull carved out her role last season. Hull played hard-nosed defense, moved intelligently off the ball, and hit open threes. She wasn't trying to be a star. She was playing her role within the system. If Raven Johnson approaches her opportunity the same way, there's absolutely a path for her to be a valuable contributor for this team.
And as long as she's the one playing off ball and not Caitlin Clark, I'm rolling. I'm rolling. Like, she's going to play defense like Lexi Hall. If she plays her role like Lexi Hall, count me in. I'm rolling with Raven Johnson being a key role player, okay? Here it says the versatility could provide valuable as the Fever experiment with different lineups in preparation for the season. Here it says you can't teach instincts, you can't teach those go-go gadget arms, the length in her ability to recover. So it's just going to continue to grow. Head coach Stephanie White said of Johnson after her preseason debut in the win over New York Liberty. The same glowing sentiment applies to Johnson's attitude. The rookie has talked about how she has peppered her teammates with questions, and they certainly seem to appreciate how eager she is to learn. Sophie Cunningham in particular has been effusive in her praise of Johnson.
Kelsey Mitchell has been effusive in her praise of Johnson on her podcast, Show Me Something. Mitchell called Johnson a freaking dog, which in basketball terminology is about the highest compliment you can give a competitor. That's a veteran all-star guard vouching for a rookie's mentality and work ethic. That matters in a locker room. Johnson herself has talked about how she's been peppering her teammates with questions, trying to absorb as much knowledge as possible about the WNBA game. That's the right approach for a rookie. Come in humble, learn from the veterans, find your role, and execute it at a high level. The early returns from preseason suggest Johnson is doing exactly that. She's not trying to do too much. She's playing within herself. She's defending at a high level, which is what the team needs from her. And she's openly supporting Caitlin Clark as the leader of this franchise. But here's where we need to pump the brakes and address the elephant in the room, Stephanie White. Because while Raven Johnson is doing everything right, we don't know what Stephanie White's vision is for this roster. And that's a problem.
Helm, you got to keep your eyes peeled, ear to the streets, because you can't trust her. I'm telling you, I just got a funny feeling. You know, I don't like some of the things she has done with Caitlin Clark, all of this trying to play her at small forward and putting her off the ball, all of this nonsense. Look, man, the offense was just fine before you got here, Stephanie White. That's what you need to understand. That's what you need to understand. Nobody was raving about your Connecticut Sun offense with Dejanay Carrington and Dewana Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. There was a good team. Nobody was ranting and raving about your offense. So the fact that you came here to a team who was clicking on all cylinders offensively post-Olympic break under Christy Sides and have tried to just completely change things, people don't like it. People don't like it. And I'm one of those people. And the second I see or smell some funny business going on, we gonna be calling it out. It's as simple as that. But Raven Johnson, shout out to you, admitting Caitlin Clark is the GOAT. Continue to do your thing. I think she has a lot of potential to grow alongside Caitlin Clark. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Keep the video.
Let's be very clear about something. The Indiana Fever's offense was not broken when Stephanie White arrived. After the Olympic break last season under Christy Sides, this team was clicking on all cylinders offensively. They were running, they were spacing the floor, they were letting Caitlin Clark operate with freedom, and they were winning games. Nobody was watching that offense and thinking, you know what this needs? A complete overhaul. But that's exactly what Stephanie White is trying to implement. She's installing a new system. She's experimenting with Caitlin Clark playing off the ball at small forward. She's trying to change the offensive identity of a team that was already elite offensively, and that raises serious questions about her judgment and her priorities. Stephanie White came from the Connecticut Sun, where she coached a solid team with players like DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and Dejounte Carrington. That team was good, but nobody was raving about Connecticut's offensive system. Nobody was writing articles about the brilliance of Stephanie White's offensive schemes. They were a tough physical team that played hard and defended well. That's not what the Fever need to be. The Fever have the most dynamic offensive player in women's basketball. They have a generational talent who can score from anywhere and create for everyone. The offensive system should be built around maximizing her strengths, not forcing her into some predetermined structure that worked with completely different personnel in Connecticut. Here's what concerns me about the Stephanie White era so far. Every decision she's made seems designed to diminish Caitlin Clark's role rather than enhance it. Playing her off the ball, reducing her time with the ball in her hands, implementing a system that requires her to stand in the corner and wait for others to create. That's not how you use a player of Clark's caliber. Think about the greatest offensive players in basketball history. Did the Bulls tell Michael Jordan to play off the ball? Did the Lakers ask Kobe Bryant to stand in the corner? Did the Warriors tell Stephen Curry to be a spot-up shooter? Of course not. You build around generational talent. You give them the freedom to operate. You surround them with complementary pieces who can defend and shoot. You don't try to fit them into some rigid system that limits their impact. And this is where the Raven Johnson situation becomes potentially problematic. Not because of anything Johnson is doing wrong. She's been great. But because we don't know how Stephanie White plans to use her. Is Johnson going to be a defensive specialist who plays 15 to 20 minutes off the bench and provides energy and toughness? Perfect. That's a role she can excel in. Or is Stephanie White going to try to use Johnson as some kind of leverage against Caitlin Clark? Is she going to try to create some weird dynamic where Johnson's defense is valued more than Clark's offense? Because that would be insane, but we've seen coaches make insane decisions before. The reason Fever fans are skeptical of Stephanie White isn't because we're unreasonable. It's because we watched Christy Sides figure out how to maximize this roster. We watched the team improve dramatically over the course of last season. We watched them make the playoffs and compete with the best teams in the league, and now we're watching a new coach come in and immediately try to change everything that was working. Raven Johnson calling Caitlin Clark the GOAT is exactly what we want to hear from her. It shows she understands the hierarchy. It shows she's not coming in with an ego. It shows she's ready to play her role and help the team win. But the question remains, does Stephanie White understand the hierarchy? Does she recognize that Caitlin Clark is the franchise? Does she understand that her job is to put Clark in positions to succeed, not to prove that her system is more important than her best player? Because here's the reality. Stephanie White is replaceable. Caitlin Clark is not. If White's system doesn't work, if the Fever struggle, if Clark's numbers decline because she's being misused, the front office will move on from White without hesitation. They're not going to sacrifice a generational talent to protect a coach's ego. That's not how professional sports works. So while we're celebrating Raven Johnson's attitude and approach, while we're optimistic about what she can bring to this team defensively, we're also keeping our eyes wide open. We're watching how Stephanie White uses her. We're watching how the rotations shake out. We're watching whether the offense flows naturally or feels forced and mechanical. We're watching whether Caitlin Clark has the ball in her hands making plays or whether she's standing in the corner watching someone else run the offense. And the second we see something that looks like sabotage, the second we see decisions that prioritize system over talent, the second we see Stephanie White trying to prove she's smarter than everyone else instead of just letting her best players play, we're going to call it out. Because this franchise has one job right now, maximize Caitlin Clark's prime years. Everything else is secondary. Raven Johnson seems to understand that. She's calling Clark the GOAT. She's praising her publicly. She's embracing her role. Now we need to see if Stephanie White is on the same page. Because if she's not, this season is going to be a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And that would be a tragedy for a team that has everything in place to compete for a championship. So here's the question for you. Do you trust Stephanie White to build this offense around Caitlin Clark the right way? Or are you worried she's going to try to force her system on a team that doesn't need it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is the conversation we need to be having as this season approaches. The talent is there, the pieces are there. The only question is whether the coach is going to use them correctly. Let's hope the answer is yes.